So we've learned how to put stuff into functions. Now let's learn about getting things out of functions. Returning things from a variable. From a function. So watch this video. It goes over a lot of the stuff I'm going to go into. But let's go ahead and I'm going to write something called double. So def double. Let's go ahead and write a function here. Def double called x. And what we're going to do is that it is going to double the value of x. So print 2 times x. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and create this. So double. Let's go ahead and do double 2. 4. Okay. Let's go ahead and do 100. That should give us 200. Right, we pass in 100. We get 200. Nothing too exciting there. However, let's go. So this is pretty obvious how that works, right? But let's go ahead and now consider the fact that I like to sometimes do something. Maybe I want to double something, double a number, and then square it, right? Right? That's not too out of line, right? I should be able to do something like this. F of x, and then square something like that. Okay. Right? I should be able to do that. But I can't do it with the print, because if I try to do this, I'm going to get operand, can't, pow, none type, and int. Can't star, none type, and int. Right? We're just printing, when we print something out, we don't get it back. We're just sending it to the user to look at. And to be honest, the user doesn't really need to know what's going on a lot of the time. Here, let's take a look at changing this up. We're going to show you, so just like we could get put something into a function, we can get something out of a function. Return 2x. So double 100. Now this will actually output nothing. Nothing, nada, nilch. Because just like a function call, because I've just defined a function. Let's go ahead and look at a function that we already taken a look at, max, where I give it a bunch of things. Okay, so here's max. I've given it a bunch of things. It's going to return the biggest thing. There's that phrase again, return. Forget, I don't know why this is. It's not my code doing that. That was something weird with Python, with VS Code. So notice it's not printing anything out. What do I do to get this to print out? I have to put it in a print statement, right? A lot of time, right? When a function returns something like max does over there, max, what it does is that I've always said if you give it a bunch of stuff, it will give you the biggest thing. Here, in this case, max is returning the largest number. You give it a bunch of parameters, and it gives you something back in return. It's up to you to figure out what to do with it. In fact, every function will return something. Even when we were doing this, we were returning none. So when you do this, when you don't have a return statement, it's going to return the value none by default. So more on that later. The video in the textbook goes into detail on it, but more on that later. It's not really too relevant for right now. So here, we can print the value we get back. So double 100, 200. Double and what's great is that now we can extrapolate. We see we can use this in expressions now because it's returning. Like this. Answer is equal to double 100 squared. So double 100, which is 200, squared. 200 times 200 is 40,000. So it's a really, really, really useful. So returning is a very powerful tool. It gives us something back. Pretty much from this point on, you do not want to write print statements inside of functions unless you're debugging them. In fact, we will stare at you very strongly and ask you to correct it or mark it wrong if you've got if you are printing instead of returning, right? The book makes a big point about it over here, right? It says, bad, this is confusing, it should be a return instead. You want to so the only reason we weren't doing it earlier is because I didn't want to give you too many things to think about at once. I wanted to show you, here's how you put stuff into functions. Now we're worried about getting stuff out of functions. Now return has actually got some cool rules attached to it. Okay, first off, I'm going to go ahead and pass over here. So return pass me again means I'm just leaving that blank. The compiler's not going to, the interpreter's not going to complain. It's going to say, oh, that's a placeholder. So def, let's make another function. Def, give me 5. Right, we can simply just write a function that takes in no parameters and gives you something back. Here, give me 5 would just simply, when called, give you 5. Return 5. A fairly useless function, but sometimes you do want functions that take in nothing and do a bunch of other stuff on the side. So here, we've got, here this one is return stops a function. So here, I'm going to say print. This is the first line of the function. Here, I'm not trying to print out what my answer is, so I'm not being contradictory here. Okay. Print. This is the second line of the function. Print. Or now I'll say return. I'm at the returned the third line. Print. This is the fourth line, and return. I returned the fifth line. So let's go ahead and call this, right? And just to simply say, what we'll do is that we will print return stops at a function, and we'll invoke it. Or return stops a function. This is the first line of a function. This is the second line of a function. I returned a third line. And as you can guess by the function name, return stops a function. Once it hits the return, right, once it gives you back, there's really no point in continuing. It's just going to give you something back. So these two statements over here just will never execute. The lines 12 and 13, the fourth and fifth line. They're never going to execute. Okay? So that is important to know, and it's also a useful tool to basically say, okay, if I got an answer, I don't need to do anything anymore. So we're going to go ahead and now start by creating some basic functions to solve some problems in our next video. Okay?